Alright, so, Alright, so, for the third episode of Let's Discuss, we're going to discuss a topic that probably has not gotten too much press, at least in the correct way. Jim Sterling put a video up on his show, Jimquisition, in which he discussed, he was talking about how angry gamers get about things and how toxic gamers can get about stuff. And he mentioned the fact that when Bioshock Infinite got all that praise, it started to get a bunch of negative press. It started to getting a bunch of people didn't like it. A bunch of people talked about how terrible it was. And he was talking about this, and he was making, he was saying, why you got to get so toxic and stuff like that. The thing I immediately said right then to myself, I didn't comment or anything like that because there's why. The thing I immediately said to myself was that people were correct, though. To say it wasn't the popularity effect would be completely dumb, would be completely incorrect, because, frankly, I'm probably a majority of people who said they didn't like Bioshock Infinite did it because of the popularity effect. Did it because people liked it and they didn't like the fact that people liked it, which is so stupid, but whatever. At least people were not mindlessly liking it, but it's one evil for another, mindlessly not liking it. But here's the problem that I had with it, is the fact that I got it much later than when it came out. It came out in February, I believe, of 2013, so last year. I got it early. I got it for Christmas, I think. I don't know when I got it, but I got it on Steam sale. I got it for cheap. I think it was like $5 or $10. I think it was $5. So, a Christmas special. I then played it then, and then something hit me. Because I didn't know. I had the game spoiled for me a little bit. But I didn't, frankly, I didn't think it didn't bother me at all. I think I anticipated the ending more because of it, because I was like, man, I can't wait to have it. I can't wait to see how this all works together, because everyone talks about how well the ending kind of wraps together, why the ending is so well formed. Yes, the ending's great, it's so amazing, it's so well formed, and so I'm hearing all this, but I'm like, man, this is going to be sweet. So I play through it, somewhat disappointed, definitely not as good as Bioshock 1, but, say a lot. You can't, that's like saying, just like I've said this a million times, better does not mean bad. Better does not mean good, nor does worse mean bad. Bioshock, before the ending happened, Bioshock Infinite is not a bad game. Even with the ending, I'd still consider it not a bad game, but it is most certainly a egregious step down, really. It's the kind of step that you almost fall and you get like you hold on to the handrails of the stairs, and you were scared at that point because you basically almost died. All right, so just to sum this up, this is going to go into I'm also going to talk about this in a bit more detail with my Zero Escape Virtue / Reward video. So I'm going to kind of leave it kind of loose here. Right after I beat Bioshock Infinite. I basically said one thing to myself, and I was like, wow, that was pretty terribly written. All it is really just understanding the definition of words, and the entire narrative falls apart. So I came up with this stupid little word game. Well, not really. It's just a game I played with people where, and I figured out what it did was it confused people to no end. I basically walked up to people. When we would talk about it, for some reason we'd get on Bioshock Infinite, whether I brought it up or not, I can't remember. I think most of the time other people brought it up, and then I'd bring it up to my friend, because I text him. I always yell. Basically, whenever I hit a bad moment in the game, I yell at him through the text message. I'm like, how do people like this? Blah blah blah. So I come up with this little game, and I ask people when we're talking about this, and I always ask, is time travel multidimensional travel? And this confuses the crap out of people. And like I said, I'm going to go into a lot more detail in another video. But for now, let's not go into let's not go into all kinds of stupid details and stupid how traveling back through time could be considered multidimensional travel because of this or that or that. Remember, all of these theories, none of them even tested, most of them not even theoretically thought out properly. but just go off of what we what just the science fiction, like not the actual scientific theories, just the dumb books and TV, how they render them, how they bring them into how they bring them into a show and a series. I don't know. I don't even know what's grammatically correct at that point, because they both don't sound well. They both don't sound correct. But is time travel multidimensional travel? It's a very simple question. It confuses people because it's an obvious question. Like when you ask someone a super obvious question, like is an apple an orange? You're sitting there. You don't think about the question at all. You're sitting there thinking about, what am I trying to imply? What am I implying? What subtext am I bringing up? You know. Yeah, what subtext am I bringing up? Which, frankly, like no one I ever discussed this with got what I was trying to say. No one understood what I was trying to say, which was just that. It's just that question. I'm like, it's not like I'm not asking you I'm not being deceitful. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm literally asking you a question. And here's how it would work. I would ask you a question. I would ask you, is time travel multidimensional travel? And then you would say, well, no, it's not. You know, I mean, that's a logical fallacy if we would believe that time travel is multidimensional travel. And then I would end up saying, well, then the entire narrative of Bioshock Infinite collapses. Like that. That's it. I mean, no trickery, no deception. That's it. That's all I'd say. The entire narrative collapsed because you understand the differences between time travel and multidimensional travel, while the developers don't. But see, you would never ever get that. I've tried that so many times. And then, like, you would hear, like, 80%, like, every time they would come up with something that was not clever, but it was still stupid, and it would just draw on, and it wouldn't even let me just go with my simple little word game that I was coming up with. Or my little game that I was coming up with, my word game. They would always say, like, hey, well, when you're traveling between dimensions, time still travels forward, so technically you are time traveling, and blah, blah. They would say stupid, sarcastic comics like that. Because they couldn't tell where I was going with it, but they definitely knew that it was like what I was trying to do wasn't like the immediate thing. Like when you ask a question that you know is not being asked, which I like to call a non-question, which like it does not happen. Like I have a problem with, like, for me as a professional writer, like academic writing bothers me a bit because, you know, following a standard is stupid. But I have this thing I've developed this idea called a non-question, which is because there's a difference between a hypothetical question, which you're asking a question and you're asking a question that's meant to be pondered or thought upon with no direct answer, whereas a non-question is a question that you already know the answer to. I came up with this thing, and I know I've had arguments with people about it because, like, isn't there supposed to be a question mark here in this song? I'm like, but it's a non-question. It's a question, but there's no answer. Like, you're not asking a question when you ask that question. And if you ever had kids or ever dealt with kids, you know what I'm talking about. Because whenever, like if a kid, like the common argument, the common thread that came from the non-question is just you're asking a question that you already know the answer to. Like, you're not asking a question. You're not asking a question. You're demanding a statement from someone. You're demanding that they tell the truth or something like that. Like, it's when you're messing, like when you're involved with kids, you look down on them and you see the blueberries all over the face, and you ask them, "Did you eat that pie?" You know they ate that pie. You know they ate that pie. There's pie all over their face. Well, you're not asking them, "Did you eat that pie?" You're basically telling them, "I want you to tell the truth about eating that pie, or I'm going to kick the crap out of you for being a terrible kid and lying to me." You know, it's that kind of idea. That's what you're doing. Is whenever you yell when you're asking a question that you know that you already know the answer to, it I would consider a non-question. Because a hypothetical question doesn't necessarily have an answer, but at least you're asking them something. You're essentially, when you ask them a hypothetical question, you're asking them to think about it. Whereas with a non-question, you're telling them, "Tell me why you ate that pie." Tell me, like, you're basically saying, "Tell me you ate that pie." You're not asking them, "Did they eat the pie?" You're really not. Just because that's what you said, that does not mean what you meant. So that's where this whole thing comes from. I'm asking you, Well, I don't even know why I went on that tangent, because it has nothing to do with anything, but it's basically the same, under the same kind of principle. I'm asking you a question, and it really, the question itself doesn't matter, because frankly, because I'm asking you to deduce the ending for yourself. When I ask you these questions, I'm not asking you hey, I don't want to know whether time travel and multidimensional travel are the same things or not. I really don't. I'm trying to say, if you think about it in this manner, the ending falls apart completely. And that's a big thing with Bioshock Infinite for me. No one got it. I can't believe that no one got that. It disappointed me to no end. Because everyone who hated the game, for me, almost every time that I have an opinion, when I talked about The Walking Dead in the last episode, and I was getting upset, which hopefully I don't ever do again. But when I was talking about The Walking Dead episode, a lot of people who didn't like the game, especially the Steam reviews, which I talked about it, they didn't like it for stupid reasons, or they had weird reasons, or they're like, it's not a game, it's a visual novel, blah 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 blah. Just because it's a visual novel, does not make it any worse or better of a game. Just because it's a visual novel doesn't mean anything. You really, really, really gotta know what you're talking about when you review these things. Because if you I don't like this game, is stupid, is infinitely better than I don't like this game because it's of a genre that I don't happen to like. Well, then you don't have a good opinion on it, son. So this thing, I'm pretty sure the same thing happened with Bioshock Infinite, where people didn't like the game, but for horribly incorrect reasons. Spoonie did a video about this. And this is how I got spoiled by it, because I watched him talking about it. He had an hour video talking about Bioshock Infinite, and he talked about the story. And what happened was, he got it completely wrong, which is sad, because I kind of believed him at first. So I really because from what he said, from how he presented it, which it does somewhat. If you miss what I'm talking about the whole time travel, multidimensional travel thing, it kind of makes sense within that context. How everyone likes the game. If you base it off on how everyone likes the ending, his explanation of the ending is really good, I believe. It sounds amazing when it comes. If you're not listening to me, if you're missing the most blatant point of how incorrect the ending actually is, his explanation of it does make a lot of sense and is really good. But then again, him and every reviewer that I've ever talked about it, Yahtzee, Jimquisition, so many people who talked about Bioshock Infinite missed the thing completely, though. During the entire game, it's setting up multidimensional travel. Multidimensional rifts open up, to different dimensions, different things that happen. Nothing about time. Nothing about time. Only when you hit the ending, only when you hit the absolute ending, and trust me, I am counting the time when she teleports you into the future somehow. I am counting that. Every time something happens in this game, it's all about multidimensional travel. Everything happens in this game multidimensional. Only at the ending does it turn into time travel. For some reason, for some unexplained reason, it turns into time travel, and I don't get it. Don't get it at all. It's weird because people explain. That's one of the more disappointing things I found in this, is the fact that no one thought about it. No one questioned the time travel ability. And every time someone brings up the time travel thing and how it could work within this system, it only brings up more questions. Yeah, so basically, here's the story, spoiler alert, of what actually happens. You get sent into the future, she's like, oh, right now, you never saved me. I have a lot of problems with it other than the time travel thing with the game, but we'll stick with the time travel, because frankly, the narrative collapsing in and of itself, like in my Naruto review, when Toby's dead and none of the series actually happens, that's the most important part. And frankly, like I said, after like nothing can get worse than this, because when your entire narrative collapses in on itself, there's not a whole lot worse you can do than that. Maybe pedophilia, but whatever. Alright, so basically, you get set forward in time, and she says to this, and she says, this is what bothered me. It's like, frankly, she said that Booker never saved her. Every time I fought, every time I saw that bird, I'm like, of all the people I've killed, of all the crap that I've done, like, you don't think that I couldn't kill that bird? Like, it has a giant, like, eye. Its eye is this massive thing that could easily be shot to death. Like, it seemed like this would be an easily killable thing within the world of Bioshock. Not like, oh, I'm a video gamer, I'm playing video games, I could kill it. No, it's like, as Booker DeWitt, I look at that giant eye, and it's like, hey, couple shotgun shots, bam. I've got a dead robot bird on my hands. So whatever. You go to the future, she gives you the paper that way that you can control the bird. For some reason, she gives it to you. So she's like, you never made it. You never made it to me. So eventually I broke down, and now, 50 years later, or how many ever years later, that I'm an old woman, I'm conquering the entire world. Still makes no sense. Why would she, why would she be remorseful about it if she had broke down and accepted it? Why would she still do it after her father died? Or, well, I guess technically Constantine, or is it Constantine, or I don't know, whatever Booker's alternate name is in this universe. Even though he's dead, she's still gonna do it. Whatever, doesn't matter. Sends him back in time. And basically, when we destroy, when we use the flute to send the bird to destroy whatever that statue is, that construct that's holding her powers back, she then develops the ability to time travel. And then she does this weird multi-dimensional time shift thing where when they're underwater, they're like magically, they're just like boom, underwater. The bird drowns, and then they go off and they enter this weird multi-dimensional thing where all the dimensions like collide together for some reason. Where, for some reason, there's a singular Booker DeWitt, and yet there's multiple Elizabeths. So whatever. It's this really emotional thing where it talks about where this fracturing started happening, where the ultimate problem was created, which was he went to a baptism or something like that, and he got really, really angry and really, really upset. And Booker DeWitt like, no, God won't help me. God's not gonna fix my problems. And then Constantine or whatever the other guys are, is it Constantine or is it something else? Whatever, but the alternate Booker DeWitt. He then accepts God's and then goes to build this whole sanctuary and does all that fun jazz. So then they basically say we have to go back. We have to go back to your past. We have to go all the way back to your past and kill and prevent Constantine from our Comstock. It's Comstock. That's what it is. My bad. We have to prevent Comstock from actually, doing all of this thing. So just killing Comstock in one world does not alter anything out. There's, like they said, there's millions of Comstocks that all need to be killed. So how do we do that? Well, then she magically takes him back in time to the point in which he basically becomes Comstock and then kills him. That's all of the Elizabeths drown him, killing him, and boom, wipes out all of Comstocks. Maybe, I guess technically, I mean, if you agree with if you even romanticize or even give any kind of credibility to the multidimensional theory, which I am pretty sure does not exist based on, I can talk about it later, but frankly if you look at the theology, but not theology, but the philosophy behind it and how it was created and the elements that were founded in order to create the idea of multidimensional travel and multidimensional universes and all that fun jazz, you will know how inept it is when you take a very stern look at it rather than just going, oh, it's a cool concept. Yeah, but it comes from one of the dumbest places ever, so whatever. And basically, Magic. The entire game establishes multidimensional travel. I'm not questioning it. If an entire game is establishing it, doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to go, hey, multidimensional travel is not possible because the origins of multidimensional travel is stupid. I'm not going to say that. I'm not that stupid, nor am I that petty. But most certainly... Oh, it's still in cellophane. I looked at my Final Fantasy 13 case, and it's still in its packaging because I haven't played it yet because it's bad. But discussing whatchamacallit, but frankly, the entire game, the entire narrative of the game is about multidimensional travel. Like, that's one of the most important things you can even talk about it. It's multidimensional travel. I don't care about the stupid, how pointless and stupid the salts are, how those salts make no sense, in the storyline. I don't care about that. I'm not picky. I can let things go pretty easily when it comes to things like that. I don't care about anything else. But when your entire game, when you have like 10 hours of narrative, and those 10 hours are, hey, let's this and this and this, it's all about multidimensional travel. We're traveling through dimensions. Like, there's no time travel. There's nothing like that. And then at the very end, you time travel back in time to the spot in which Comstock is created. Then you kill Booker DeWitt in order to stop him from becoming Comstock. And all the Comstocks are dead at that point. You have made a fatal error. You do not mix these two together. These two are not like... If you want to get into the nitty-gritty details of multidimensional travel and time travel, you can get into some really, really complex things. But when you look at it from like the basis definition of it, when you look at the simplest definition of it, time travel and multidimensional travel is actually a highly simple concept, an incredibly simple concept. It's only when you start like adding elements to it and started making a story out of it that things complicate. Like time travel, like when you look at it, it's like a straight line, and you're just bouncing from that one end of the straight line to the other end of the straight line. You're just going into a different time, You're just hitting a different time. You're just altering it, and that's it. Like, you can alter time, and then you can create multiple timelines and all this crazy stuff. But really, from the most simplistic standpoint, time travel is just jumping from one end of the line to another end of the line. Simple. That's space time travel. It's a very simple concept from that perspective. Just one time, nothing happens. Multidimensional, on the other hand, is the same thing, except for maybe even simpler. What you have is you have a line that's going straight up. And once you multidimensional travel, all you do is you just stop the line, you go to one direction, to either to the right or left, and then you follow up another line, really. Again, I'll talk about this in the Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward. It just makes more sense that basically, if you could even chart out how this works, and it'd be a very, very, like, if you were going to chart out what happens in Bioshock Infinite, which I should do. Frankly, if I have a picture up that shows this, that'll be far more beneficial to my point than anything else. But essentially, it's very simple. You go straight, you hit another dimension, you hit another dimension, you hit another dimension, you hit another dimension, then you time travel back in time, all the dimensions collapse into each other, and then you're murdered. Like once you hit the ending of the game, the way everything works just corrupts and becomes incredibly stupid. But yeah, that's basically the point. It's the fact that time travel and multidimensional travel are very simple things when you look at them at base levels, and they're aggressively different from one another. How they function, at least if you looked at it geometrically, how they function is completely different. Like even when you didn't look at it geometrically, the differences are pretty staggering. And like, frankly, all the developers of Bioshock Infinite, all they had to do was look at it and say to themselves, is time travel multidimensional travel? Nope. Well, then why? Alright, so the whole narrative just collapses in on itself, and then everyone's all like, hey, that's a nice way to wrap everything up. You mean destroying everything you worked for this entire game so far? Yay. Good job, guys. Well, yeah, among other things, but frankly, like at that point, like for me, it was the simplest thing ever. I was just thinking about it as like time travel. Like the first time it happened, when you get sucked up by the old Elizabeth, I was like, that kind of made no sense, but whatever. Because I think I was more focusing on the part like, you do know I could kill that bird. Like that I think that bothered me more than the time travel thing, because I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I was like, I could just kill the bird, not that hard. It's a bird with a giant red glowing eye. It's a giant red glowing spot on a boss. Pretty easy to kill, Well, upon presenting this opinion to several people, they have created, as fanboys of these games, as people who are unwilling to listen to reason, because it's not like there's a difference between, like, saying, I think the game is terrible, like, because everyone talks about how great the story is and how great the dialogue is, and I disagree with that pretty aggressively. It's not like me saying Elizabeth and Booker DeWitt's dialogue comes off as not thorough, not realistic, and overly simplistic. Like, basically, it's like, hey, I've done bad things, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it just comes off as unhuman. Like, humans don't really talk this way. They're not overly dramatic about things at times like that. I mean, they're not overly dramatic when they talk and say, I don't want to talk about it. Like, people can be people are overly dramatic all the time, but the way they talk is different. But if you wanted to argue with me about that, that would be a very plausible thing. You could argue with me about that. I'm not saying that is, it's like I'm so objective about everything that I know for a fact that the writing in the writing in Bioshock Infinite is not very good. And you'd be like, oh, how dare you, drastically deed, and then we'd both be essentially correct because we're both arguing opinion. I don't think the writing deserves it's such an amazing story, when in fact I would have like 100 examples of saying how this could have been better. But you can argue that way, because at times I liked it, so it's not like a horrible, like, oh, the whole thing was terrible. And then there's another thing with the how absolutely contrived the enemies are in the end game of Bioshock Infinite, where the entire, like, the reasoning for the entire, like, everyone turning against you, instead of you going into an alternate reality in which you as Booker DeWitt ends up siding with, like, Comstock for some reason, whatever reason you might have for siding with them, instead of you siding with them and that being the reason why they attack you, like maybe you were trying to deceive Comstock and like get in and get Elizabeth and get out or something like that, and yet you had to do things against whoever these red cape, like not red cape but red, like these whatever the red guys are, because basically Comstock's guys are blue, the resistance is red. So maybe you had to do some things against Comstock. You had to attack you had to attack the resistance in some way in order to get Comstock's favor, or someone who's employed by Comstock's favor, and then you can sneak in, get Elizabeth, and blah 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 blah. You get what I'm talking about. The fact is, what happens is like, I saw you get killed. You must be the devil, and so they attack you. Stupid, but like you could even argue that. But frankly, I think I've got a good handle on that. One thing you can't really argue with is the fact that the justifications of time travel within this game. You'd think they would have mentioned it. You think something would have happened, like they would have discussed it in some way, some manner, some fashion. But they didn't. They didn't at all. And so, a bunch of people presented opinions against me. Not opinions against me, but they discussed things with me. And they counter-argued against me in several areas. Whereas, like I said, you can do that with me not liking some of the dialogue and saying that the overall story isn't like the greatest thing ever and doesn't deserve awards in the narrative area. I mean, it does if that's the best. If that's the best that came out that year, then it does deserve it. But it's not good compared to other games that have better narratives. So basically, yeah, it doesn't work. Like all of the opinions they point. I'm trying to think of more, but I can't. So I'm only gonna hit the one that I got in my head right now. My friend immediately brought up the fact that the construct, which I think it's called, but it's that giant statue that she basically lived in. basically, it was used to hold her powers back. Like, the whole point of it was that instead of for some reason like raising his daughter Elizabeth in some kind of manner that like she would actually like his, like she was a toddler when she was taken from Booker. She was a young kid. So instead of like raising her to be his actual daughter, they forced her into a building so that way, you know, she can't get away. Like, you know, you can indoctrinate people pretty easily, you know, until you actually throw them into a building and don't let them leave. If like when you force them into a building and don't let them leave and don't give them attention and like don't talk to them at all, then they don't develop a connection with you, and they can't be brainwashed with you they can't be brainwashed by you, and then you can't get her to commit, like you have to torture her and hurt her in ways in order to get her to join your side, rather than just raising her as your daughter and just telling her this is what we need to do. Like, you can lie about this. This happens in real life all the time. You can lie about it. You can say, those people down there, they persecuted our family, they attacked us, and that's why we're up here. They were trying to take away our money, take away our intellectual pursuits, taking away all of our sciences and stuff, and now we're going to seek revenge. Or you can even go on the justified holy kind of thing where, no, they're incorrect, they're saying things that are incorrect, and we need to help those. We need to help the downtrodden who are being oppressed by these people. And frankly, either way would make sense. But the fact is, you throw her in this room, and it's to stop her powers. And I kind of get that. Like, it would make more sense if it was like a ring, or maybe the thing around her neck, like actually was holding her powers back. But whatever. Like her collar. But frankly, the building is there to stop her from using her abilities, which kind of makes sense. You don't want her going off into alternate dimensions and never getting back. So it's there to siphon her powers. And what my friend said was, if the thing destroyed, it somehow gave her all of her powers back, and then she had the ability for time travel. And this is what he presented to me. And like, this adds like 12 other things to the equation that actually hurts the story more than it backs it up. Like, if the construct being destroyed, I don't know, whatever, the statue being destroyed would give her her abilities to have time travel. That means one of two things. Either it just magically gave her the ability to time travel, which, frankly, would be the explanation that fit most in the narrative. It would be the worst. It'd be the worst explanation based off of just an intellectual purpose, but whatever. It'd be the worst one, but frankly, it's the only one that makes sense. Is that destroying the construct magically gives her time travel abilities. The far more logical one, but it's one that adds 1,000 more things to it, is the fact that the construct, this giant statue, in fact, actually does like stop all of her time travel powers. And so by breaking it, she gets all of her time travel powers back, making sense outside of the fact that of why did it siphon away all of her time travel abilities? Why did it? Why does her time travel abilities get siphoned completely away, get completely suppressed, when in fact it's her multidimensional powers that are left behind? Even if it was in even a small area, even if it's only in a limited kind of fashion, she still has her multidimensional powers. Like, even if she's limited so aggressively, it's like why would they siphon it like indeterminately? Like, because either way, she's gone. Like, either way, if she can multidimensional travel hard enough to another area, she's gone, out of your control, at least in that dimension. So, and if she can time travel, she's gone as well. She's gone, period, in that instance. So either way, it's the same thing. Either way, it's completely like she's just gone. And I don't get it, man. I don't get it. There's a couple other ones that I'd argue with, but basically, it all boiled down to them saying something, and it's kind of desperate. Like, I know I was kind of being a prick about it when I was talking to my friend, because I was like saying, Why is time travel the same thing as multi-dimensional? Like I kept asking him why. Why does that work for you? Why is that an explanation? He's like, man, it's just an explanation. I'm like, yeah, not a good one. You were defending a game that has a terrible, terrible ending, and you are trying to defend it for reasons why. I don't know. Why are we friends? Why are we friends, my friend? This is the friend that I LP sometimes with. I have LP'd with him a lot, but I've often not put it up because of quality. So yeah, this is gonna be a short one because I frankly I don't have a whole lot more to talk about really, because it really ultimately boils down to time travel is not multidimensional travel, and icto facto your entire narrative collapses, and I've got nothing more to say about that. The more I elaborate, the more retarded it sounds, because I'm just going off into dumb tangents that don't go anywhere. Yeah, time travel has it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't the only place where time travel could have even possibly been mentioned is when the rift opened up, and what it was doing, it was playing Jimi Hendrix, I think, or something like that. I think it was playing Jimi Hendrix from something from the 60s and 70s, something like that. It was some rock from way ahead in the future. But frankly, that's the only way that time travel was ever even mentioned beforehand. But still, it wouldn't make sense because it was in a multidimensional rift, and by that very notion, a multidimensional rift would in fact could in fact be such a shift that music evolved either faster or in a different manner or from different things. So I don't know. I don't know, man. If you want to argue about it, we can argue about it. But frankly, I think I've stated a unbreakable opinion. Frankly, I think I've stated something that has no holes that you can poke through. Maybe you have. Maybe you can outwit me. Maybe you know a bit more about the development of the game, and maybe there's some little things that I never noticed or I never picked up. But frankly, I was paying attention during the game, and I think I did a fairly good job of discussing why, in fact, this is a dumb ending. And if you want to talk about it, if you want to try to argue my points, feel free. But this is one of those that I don't even think I have to argue. Like the most argument I had about it was when, the most argument I ever had about this point was when me and my friend were talking. We were discussing where we were talking about which is worse, Mass Effect 3's ending or Bioshock Infinite's ending. And we were having a discussion about that, and that's the most discussion I've ever actually had about the ending, because it is such outside of apparent fanboyism, there is almost no arguing with the point, because it is once you stop arguing about the definitions of words, you can't argue about anything until we have the words defined. So unless we argue, you can't argue about the definitions of words while arguing about the definitions, not arguing. You can't argue about the definitions of words while you're arguing about other things. You can't be talking about whether this movie was good or this movie was bad and be arguing about the definitions of words. That the whole point of, language is very much arbitrary, but the whole point of language is that we all agree upon the definitions and the spellings and stuff like that, so that way we all kind of know what we're talking about at any given time. It's to make a uniform language, so that way we all can discuss and we can all think and all be on the same page, and that way we don't have to keep going back and arguing about stupid things like the definitions of words. And sad enough, the ending, in order to convey the ending, it's about establishing the definitions of words. Is that if the ending is good, then the definitions of words is not correct. If the ending is bad, then the definitions of these words are very much correct. So, there we have it. Thanks for watching. Hope you catch me on another Let's Discuss. And frankly, I would prefer any kind of comment. I wouldn't mind, because this whole point of this is to be a discussion. We're supposed to talk about things. We're supposed to embrace ideas with one another. And I want to do it in an intellectual level. So not an intellectual level, but in an intellectual atmosphere. So please no, you're stupid, or please let's keep this civil. Let's keep this thought-provoking, provocative, and let's just discuss some very fine things. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.